Welcome to this episode of Reading Between the Wines. I'm your hostess, Winona Glass, and I am joined with the Somme of the South, Keegan Moore.
Hello.
And today we are going to discuss The Wives by Taryn Fisher. This book came out in December of 2019 and has caused quite a stir ever since then. It has just recently been optioned as a series adaptation with Amazon. And wow. Keegan, before we even get into the synopsis of this book, what was your initial thought when you read it?
This was a crazy book. I thought we were going to learn the ins and outs of polygamy, but crazier than that. So
it definitely took a lot of unexpected storylines, as far as I could tell. So we open and we meet Thursday, and she talks about how her husband Seth is a polygamist, and she is his Thursday wife, and so her name is Thursday, and that he has a wife named Monday and a wife named Tuesday, and that Thursday is his legal wife, and that the other two wives came after her. Tuesday was his first wife. He divorced her to marry Thursday. I don't even know how to explain this book other than Thursday becomes obsessed with learning the identities of Monday and Tuesday. And that is where our book starts.
She wants to go to dinner and a movie.
Yes.
With one of the wives when she discovers her identity.
When she started stalking her in the house.
Some might call me a stalker. Some might say I was off my rocker.
This is one that I'd be very interested to actually see come to life in a series adaptation, because I would like to know the inflection of a lot of how this was interpreted. I listened to the audiobook of this, and even then I was like, I still can't really tell if how delusional she is.
Right.
I feel like we don't really understand how delusional she is, because she comes across, even in the audiobook, as opposed, and I'm assuming in the printed book as well, as being intelligent, as being very stable, other than the fact that she only sees her husband one day a week. As the book progresses, we learn that she really is not stable at all. And neither is his first wife, Regina. So she meets Regina. Well, first she meets Hanna. She meets the third wife first. This is going to get very confusing. Roll with us. So she meets Hanna, the third wife, first by going to a house from an address that she found in Seth's pocket. And so she shows up at the house, and Hanna is very unaware of who Thursday is. And so she's talking to her, and she's like, oh, I have I really like friends. I just moved here. I'm from Utah. I don't know anybody, which Seth is from Utah, her husband. And we find out that Thursday's like, well, why don't we go to dinner together sometime and a movie? And that should be fun. So even though it's against the quote-unquote rules that have been laid forth for this polygamist relationship, she just doesn't reveal to Monday, Hanna, that she is Thursday. And I hope we haven't lost half of our listenership.
Her name
so
is
far.
actually Thursday. I feel like that was kind of confusing at first.
It was very confusing.
Her legal name is Thursday.
Thursday Ellington is her name. And so while she is Thursday, is her day of the week with Seth, it is also her actual name. And so this was started as a joke with Seth that he called Regina Monday or Tuesday, and that he called Hanna Monday because Thursday's name was Thursday. But actuality, that's not the truth or the rotation. So in real life, or in the non-delusion life that is Thursday, Seth is on his second marriage, his third relationship. So he was married to Regina, who's a lawyer, and she divorces Seth because he had an affair with Thursday. Seth then marries Hanna, who is his second wife, but still continues to have an affair with Thursday. So Thursday thinks she is his only legal wife. She has imagined that she is his only legal wife when actually she's the only one of this trio that was never married to him. So as she learns about Hanna and she gets to know Hanna, and Hanna is pregnant. She starts to wonder about Regina and wants to know more about her. And she realizes that Regina might not be as the successful lawyer, powerful person that Thursday has built up in her head, because she goes in and concocts a story to meet Regina, and Regina knows who she is right away. And Thursday follows Regina back to her apartment, realizes that she lives in a shabby little one-bedroom apartment, and it is just not the situation. So then she starts to feel sorry for Regina. So she continues to pursue a relationship with Regina, and Regina seems to be interested in it, but it really turns out that Regina had her own agenda, and she really is looking for almost a way to get back at Thursday for ruining her marriage with Seth. Because I think it should be pointed out, like, Seth is not a polygamist. She concocted this whole delusion as part of her story to organize what was going on in her life. And it seems as though Thursday had had a miscarriage with Seth, and that really is kind of what set her on this psychotic path. And as many times as she tried to re-correct that path, she really couldn't, and it spiraled downwards. Regina egged that on and helped gaslight her into convincing her that it was Seth is the reason that she had the miscarriage, that it was Seth who fed her this tea that caused the miscarriage, that he didn't really want kids because he'd come from such a messed up family, and that's why he and Regina never had kids, because he did the same thing to her. And it was just really one of those, I was like, man, you kind of liked Seth at the beginning because he was kind of like this happy-go-lucky guy, owns a construction company with his friend, and you're like, okay, I mean, he's got 3 wives. And then as we start to go down this path, you're like, Seth is not a nice person. And then you start to realize what Regina's up to, and how I wrote a note here. It says that revenge is a dish served cold, and Regina was ice cold. There were definitely some very unique quotes in this book, like the one you mentioned before about being a stalker or off your rocker. I find it interesting, too, that she kind of tries to make herself the seductive one, and that she keeps saying, like, well, Seth only drinks with me. And so she's the one who always goes and gets a nice bottle of wine for the two of them to share on Thursday nights. And because he doesn't drink with the other wives, that's something that he just does. It's like a secret that they have. What other things does Thursday sacrifice to be with Seth?
Her whole life? She's in this whole world just for him. Like, all she can think about the whole week is, like, what am I going to cook for Seth on Thursday? And what's going to happen? And, like, oh, he's going to walk in, and, like, we're not even going to get to dinner. And
it's always like a 4-course or 5-course meal. I mean, it's not like she does not make chicken nuggets and mashed potatoes. She makes, like, duck confit and a souffle for dessert
well,
kind of thing.
She was under the impression that Regina ordered takeout a lot because she was a confident, successful businesswoman. So she was always trying to, like, one-up the other wives.
Mm-hmm. And it sounded like Hanna wasn't an accomplished chef. So he may have been having the chicken nuggets and mashed potatoes there. But it was, it seemed like she continued to focus on her whole Thursday was surrounded by when she was going to get to see him at the end of the day. It consumed her, and definitely all of her actions on Thursday. But what I thought was interesting and kind of a character I didn't understand was Anna. So Thursday's a nurse, and she has this woman that she befriends, but she keeps saying that she doesn't like Anna because she asks too many questions. She doesn't like Anna because she wants to be in everybody's business. But she meets Anna on the side of the road one day, and they're at a festival. And they see each other on the side of the road, and they start talking. And that really kind of becomes the start of their friendship. And when things get really crazy, Anna's kind of the only one who keeps showing up for Thursday. And it's interesting to me because I still don't understand why that character was there. I don't know if it was to establish, like, some normalcy in her life.
Like a base of reality.
Yeah. But I almost feel like Anna bought into it. Well, and I'm sure Anna didn't know, but you know, whenever she was trying to tell her that Seth poisoned her and that's why she had a miscarriage, it seemed like Anna was there for her. Like, what do we need? What can we do? We got to get this guy. But it was all a gaslight. I mean, Regina convinced her of that. It never happened. And that's why I feel like my feelings for Seth changed over this whole thing. Like first I thought, okay, well, he's a polygamist who's providing for his family. Then you find out he's just very, very unfaithful, but he's at least unfaithful with the same person. I'm not sure that makes sense. Then you kind of feel sorry for him because you realize like his construction business is not doing well. And he has this a child on the way with his second wife. He's got this crazy mistress that he's got to deal with who keeps harassing him. And then in the end, things get really hairy with the whole situation. And I didn't understand the tie-in either with Hanna and Seth are living in Thursday's grandmother's house. So Thursday shows up at the house and she keeps saying that it feels familiar. Well, it's because it was her grandmother's house. So I was very confused again, like why you would let I don't know what the male version of a mistress is, your mister. But this person you're having an affair with live in your grandmother's house with his wife and she's pregnant. I don't know. There was just a whole lot of things about the story that they gave me room for pause. Well, I was entranced, but...
Yeah. It turns out Tuesday's a trust fund baby. Like her parents are loaded. And so that was probably the main reason she had a bunch of extra property to pass out to her not husband's ex-wife. Oh.
Much of Thursday's online snooping, do you think that was justified when she was like hunting down Hanna and hunting down Regina and really trying to gain the upper hand on who they are?
Maybe I'll say justified, but like for a normal person without any diagnosed psychosis happening in their life, I think it's very unhealthy when she talks about cheating boyfriends and looking through each other's cell phones. Mm-hmm. If you find something or if you don't, if you're in that mindset, I think it's very harmful mentally.
Sure.
But she's like, it's a new age in our marriage because she's all of a sudden decided to start snooping in the cell phone. Mm-hmm. But that breaks down regular people that think their significant other's cheating on them.
Yeah, this book had lots and lots of twists and turns, but you definitely do stay enthralled. So let's jump towards the end of the book. And Thursday's now in a mental institution. Her mental health has been deemed not safe for her or other people. And so her parents are there. They're visiting her faithfully and talking to her. And Regina comes to visit her at the facility. And
why?
The book was written in 2019, so you had Zoom, you had Google Meets, you had ways of communicating, you had Facebook Messenger, you had Skype, you had all these ways that you could have said what you needed to say or see her or check on her or whatever delusion you were trying to do without meeting her face to face.
Right. And
I feel like that was, again, Regina being heartless. I mean, she's already gotten her committed because she almost shot... she did shoot Seth. Thursday shoots Seth and ends up in the mental institution. And Regina goes to see Thursday. And it just seemed to me as though, I don't know what the impetus was for that or what she was hoping to gain from going to see her. I mean, you've already destroyed Seth's life. You've destroyed Hannah's life because now her husband is in a wheelchair and she has a newborn. And clearly Thursday is not going to recover from the situation. So you've won, whatever that means. Like, I don't know what that looks like, but you're there. Like, you did it. Why go see her? So this book takes a very unexpected turn at the end.
She paid the price.
So she shows up there, and then, so Thursday snaps on her because she starts laughing at her, and it brings back all of the memory of that day being in the kitchen and Seth saying she's crazy and Hanna being there pregnant and Regina giving her the gun. I mean, I feel like Regina was really the instigator and the prodder in all of this that kind of caused Thursday's demise.
She was trying to get Thursday to take herself out.
Mm-hmm. She really wanted her to commit suicide. And I really struggled with Regina's character, especially at the end, because I don't know that I hope I don't have the capacity to manipulate someone to that extent.
To intentionally lie to someone
Yes.
that's not right in the head.
Correct.
To like
Take advantage of that
and
situation.
make their delusions worse.
Mm-hmm. So another heavy book that we have read, but we're going to lighten it up because we have another white wine to discuss. So Thursday likes to go to the market and get a wine that she can enjoy with her not husband Seth on Thursdays. So she gets a Pinot Grigio. So that is what we are drinking today, correct?
Yes. The quote from the book is, "The label is boring. Not something that catches the eye, but the austere-looking man who sold it to me had described its taste in great detail." So I thought that was kind of interesting, and I picked us out a Italian Pinot Grigio with a not-so-eye-catching label.
I love it. So we're going to pour ourselves a drink. So you have a drink, and we'll be back in just a second. Welcome back. Keegan, you've poured us something beautiful and light in our glass. Tell us a little bit about it.
Today we are drinking a 2019 Castelfeder Pinot Grigio from Alto Adige in northern Italy.
That sounds lovely. We haven't drank many Italian wines yet.
Working on it. So Pinot Grigio, also known as Pinot Gris, technically it's not its own variety. Rather, it's a clone of Pinot Noir with a color mutation. So gray or gris means, or is referring to the color of the skin of the grape. A unique style called ramato, it's where you macerate the juice on the skins for a couple days, which gives it a copper color. It almost looks like a rosé.
Really? Now, is there a difference between Pinot Grigio and Pinot Gris?
Technically, no, it's the same grape, but it's a different style. So there's three main styles: fruity and dry, fruity and sweet, or minerally and dry. So Pinot Gris is going to get the fruitiness because it's from more ripe regions, and Pinot Grigio is mostly from northern Italy or other countries emulating that style.
Which one is the minerality?
Pinot Grigio.
Pinot Grigio, okay.
So for the French and fruity, they have a little less acidity, kind of a more oily structure, or more oily in your palate, more rich structure, full-bodied, a little more intense fruit. As far as fruity and sweet, that's pretty much only in Alsace, and they tend to have a little bit of spice behind them too. And then there's Pinot Grigio, which is dry, minerally, usually made in stainless steel. It's got a slightly bitter finish. Some people find this offensive, but it's kind of a good indicator for what you're drinking. If you're trying to figure out what you're drinking and you don't know, is you kind of get this like stale beer smell.
I was going to say, it kind of smells like after a ballpark, like if you go to a baseball park, like the day after. That's kind of what I was getting, but that's not usually something I associate with wine or as a good thing.
Right. And it's just more an indicator of style and where it's grown, and those are usually the Italian ones. And then the only other main difference is they have a slightly bitter finish, a little bit of phenolics, kind of like tannins in red wine.
It does not taste like stale beer.
Oh, it tastes delicious.
It's quite good. It definitely tastes a lot different than it smells.
Very citrusy. It's got some nice saline qualities. There's some apples in there, but we'll get to tasting notes in a second. For structure, they're usually dry, moderate to moderate plus body, like also depending on where they're coming from. A little bit more acidity and average alcohol. I think this one is 13.5% alcohol. And as I mentioned before, just a touch of a little dryness in the mouth, kind of like that phenolic bitterness in the finish. So as I've said, it's kind of lighter. As you said, higher acidity. It goes well with simple pastas, risottos, any kind of fowl or shellfish, flaky fish, soft cheese, fried mushrooms. But it's really versatile.
I could see this with fried mushrooms.
Yeah. It's really versatile to go with most lighter food fares.
I will be very honest and say that I have not often thought about what wine I'm going to drink based off of what is being served or what food I intend to eat. I kind of just pick a wine and go with it. So it is different. I feel like what you're going to eat with it now, having learned a little bit more from you, that I can see where the food can complement the wine or make it change tastes a little bit, depending on what you're eating.
Exactly. So do you remember your first Pinot Grigio?
I do. I do believe it was actually my very first wine.
Oh, wow.
Was a Pinot Grigio, and it was the Santa Margherita Pinot Grigio it was 20 years ago that I had it. It was not last year. And it was not expensive. It was probably $7 or $8 a bottle back then. And I know that it's definitely been marketed a lot in those last 20 years. I see it everywhere now.
Definitely. So it was introduced in the United States by Anthony Torlato in 1979.
Holy cow.
As you said, it's now one of the most requested Pinot Grigios, and it is one of the most expensive Pinot Grigios I've seen on the market.
Is it really?
Around $20 and up.
Wow.
For a regular bottle.
And I remember when it was not even in double digits.
But Santa Margherita was founded in 1935 by Count Gaetano Marzotto, and he decided to go away from the traditional method of the ramato and just immediately press the grapes and give it this more clean, fresh style of Pinot Grigio. And then obviously they worked on their marketing, and it rose to popularity, and they've expanded. They own different estates. If you've ever heard of Torresella or Ca del Basso or Masi, all under the Santa Margherita group.
Oh, so they've even expanded into what all they provide as far as I think whenever I had that a long time ago, that was the only wine they produced was the Pinot Grigio.
Right, and now they make a Chianti Classico because they've bought some stuff up in Chianti. So to the wine we're drinking, this is a little more affordable. It's around $15 in the U.S. on the market. Castelfeder was founded in 1969 by Alphonse Giovanet. So his son, Gunther Giovanet, now runs the estate. He took over in 1989, and he runs it with his wife, Alessandra, and their 2 kids. So they're big proponents in sustainable farming. This is grown on some sand and gravel.
I kind of feel as though a lot of these that aren't corporate owned, that are more independent owned, that they're really big on the sustainable farming or the organic growing versus your larger producers. Is that fair?
Yeah, but I mean, in their defense on the other side, it's really hard to have like 100 acres and not do something that requires for you to have a machine or for you not to care about your staff to keep them on because you have to hire so many people or you have to spray those pesticides. You just run into a lot more issues. But this is kind of a more fresh style, cold macerated for 12 hours, and it's pressed. It does see some aging on the lees, which you should know or remember as a throwback episode is a fancy way of saying dead yeast cells.
Ah, the dead yeast cells.
Yeah. But it gives it a little more body and depth here. So on the palate.
Yes, let's take a drink.
Very minerally, it's pretty fruit forward as well. I got like pears and green yellow apples. A little bit of that phenolic bitterness, kind of more on the finish, right? Like after you swallow.
Definitely got some white wine.
This is a white wine. It's very fresh. As we said before, you could drink this with a salad or like a lighter risotto.
I see like sitting outside at a park, having a salad with a girlfriend, drinking this.
Light, easygoing, not too high alcohol. Has a pretty strong floral component as well. I've got a lot of white flowers on the nose and on the palate. But very delicious, easy drinking. Like I said, versatile with food and pretty well recognized around the world as a grape itself.
It's got pretty nice legs on it too.
Does it now?
Yes.
So some other options if you can't find Castelfeder on the market because they are smaller production. Elena Volk is another one of my favorite producers out of northern Italy as well.
Was that Volk with a V?
No, it's W.
Volk.
V sounding, but it's WALCH.
Okay.
It kind of gets tricky in northern Italy.
Sure.
There's a lot of other countries that influence the region. But another producer from France is Trimbach, and they're in Alsace. So if you want that more fruity style, Alsace is one of the driest wine growing regions in the world. And you can also get some really nice Pinot Gris from Oregon in the United States as well. Those would be my recommendations if you can't find this particular bottle.
We'll have a lot of this information available on our website at readingbetweenthewines.blog. We appreciate our Patreon subscribers as they help support this podcast and keep us in wine and books. If you are not a current Patreon subscriber, we encourage you to either go to our website at readingbetweenthewines.blog or at patreon.com/readingbetweenthewines. So until next time, always keep your glass half full. Cheers!